We're going to stick within the zombie zone right now. We're going to ditch Black Summer spoilers so everybody else is free to come back. And right now, we want to briefly talk about I'm even hesitant to say top 5 zombie movies because, to be fair, this is not my top 5 zombie movies. I would say, like, this is my zombie movie starter pack.
Okay.
Does that make a little sense? Zombie movie primer.
Sure.
A good way to get this is a good well-rounded way to get into zombie movies if you do not watch very many zombie movies. That's how I'm processing it in my mind, at least. Is that how you would, dub your list?
Yeah, whatever, man. I like picking 5 zombie movies is a fool's errand in any case because it's such a prolific genre and there are so many genuinely phenomenal films within that genre. I remember we did our list on the .com, which we'll have many of these and more should you care to check it out. I was like, I'll do top 10. No, that's ridiculous. I'll do top 15. No, that's ridiculous. And the list just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Growing.
Yeah.
All right. I think you should kick us off because if you go down your list, I think like the essential starts us.
Right on.
I don't need to force feed you one to pick, but
no, I feel like we know where that's gonna. Yeah. So Night of the Living Dead.
Course.
I mean, what are you gonna say? That hasn't been said. It changed everything. It defined the zombie as we know it, and it, by some foolishness of copyright, allowed zombies to become this sort of uncopyrighted creature creation in the way that it is the seed that starts the whole genre that dominated horror in the 2000s and continues to be a force today.
It is an absolute must-watch if you have any interest in zombies whatsoever.
And it holds up as a drama so remarkably well.
It really does. That kind of shocked me, is that it still holds up so well today. I mean, in particular, that opening scene.
Yeah.
Like the scene in the cemetery. Every single time I watch it, it makes me uncomfortable.
It's great. And
when we went to Pittsburgh I think it was for an event for Krampus.
Yeah.
A bunch of us drove out to that cemetery and we took pictures reenacting that opening scene. And it's just like so much unforgettable imagery. And once they get into the house too, the claustrophobia kicks in so strong every single time I watch it.
It's a perfect pressure cooker movie.
Yeah. Pressure cooker movie. That's probably the best way to describe
it. With one of the best stinger endings probably of all time. I mean, you can race into that if you want to. George says that's not what he meant to do. Well, I'm not sure how much I believe that. But it's a great ending, whatever you want to read into it. It's scary and it's mean.
Yeah, it really is. Speaking of mean movies, we'll go into my first one right now. And I'm actually going to go with the Dawn of the Dead remake. And I think that was because that was my first zombie obsession. When that movie came out, I watched it and I rewatched it and I beat the crap out of that. I believe it was a DVD at that point, but that was probably one of the first zombie movies that I saw that really scared me too. Like it put me on edge and it made me feel at risk because before that I had seen Night of the Living Dead. I had seen slow moving zombies before that felt like, to be frank, at that age, they felt easily escapable to me. And there is a viciousness, especially in the opening outbreak in that movie, that really, it feels so mean and violent. And that, to me, was one of the first times that it clicked in my head that this isn't some sort of, like, cinematic adventure. This is a terrifying scenario that I would not want to be in the middle of.
The whole, the opening, the credits, the whole, like, first, 10, 15 movies of that. Minutes of that movie are a freaking banger. And for me, it's still, in my opinion, Zack Snyder's best movie. I super love that film. And I know that certain elements don't work.
Well,
like the zombie baby is stupid as hell.
I know.
But the parts that do work so well for me. The ensemble is just fantastic. And there's so many almost, people who before they were big. I mean, like Ty Burrell before Modern Family, and he's playing the biggest dickhead in the world. And we all know him as like sweet dad now. I love it. I love the cast.
And Sarah Polley is just an A+ lead in that
she so does not get enough work.
She doesn't. And it's incredible because doesn't she make a lot lot of her own work. Like,
she does.
Makes a lot of her own opportunities now, and it still feels like she is not, you know, she's not kind of like a like a household name like she should be at this point. I think she should be in
everything. I love her.
Crazy.
And, it's got a script by James Gunn. I mean, like, what a force of like creatives on that. And it definitely, I mean, along with 28 Days Later, I think that Dawn of the Dead remake is what sort of spurred that obsession with zombies in the early 2000s.
I would second that. I feel like you just made yourself a transition there.
I sure did, because my next title is, of course, 28 Days Later. And if you want to debate me on whether or not they're zombies, I advise you to do anything else, because I'm not interested. We've been having that debate for 10 years. Let's just say, for the purposes of this exercise.
I'm going to call that debate into question even more so with one of my later picks.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You know, whether or not you believe, because they are not technically dead, that they count as zombies, what I will say is that Danny Boyle used the archetypes of zombie genre to make a fabulously scary film with an incredible cast. Cillian Murphy, another person who should just be in everything.
Everything.
Such a cinematic face, and what a wonderful performer. And just scary. Scary, scary. I think this was the first one where I saw fast zombies and was like, oh, that's a new kind of horror that I didn't know.
This is the one that kind of like took the baton for me from Dawn of the Dead, where, you know, very, very similarly, it terrified me. Like it was fun to watch, but it also, like, I couldn't process it in a way where it would be fun to live it.
No.
And, I don't know. Sometimes when you watch disaster movies, it's like, you know, that thing that kicks in and you're like, I don't know, like a crazy adventure kind of thing.
The Zombieland fantasy.
Yeah, a little bit, which
Smashing
is probably
up the
why
store
that's eventually going to be on my list as well. But I did have Night of the Living Dead and 28 Days Later on my list, but we wanted to spread the love here a little so we can include 10 movies. My next one is actually Paranorman, and I include this on the list because as someone who grew up loving horror and as someone who is now an adult and very thankful that I was exposed to a lot of it when I was young, I want to have these genres spread to younger moviegoers too, and I think Paranormal Activity, I think Paranorman is like an A+ option if you have a young moviegoer in your life that is interested in this kind of stuff, but you don't want to, you know, throw them in the deep end, so to speak.
I need to find out if my best friend's son likes Paranorman. He's into really spooky stuff, but I don't know if that's too scary yet, because I think he's only 3.
Oh, that's a little young, I think,
he loves
for
Troll
Paranorman.
Hunters, though.
I love how, like, I am, like...
We're parenting experts over here.
I have a 7-year-old cat. He's ready for Paranorman. I think that I would probably want to share Paranorman with my little cousins who are 7 and 9 right now.
Yeah, that seems like the right age.
Yeah. I would be happy to show that to them, but also, I'll throw any Leica movie on a list whenever I get the opportunity, because talk about movie magic, stop motion magic. They are just on another level when it comes to stop motion and just animation and storytelling, for that matter.
They really
Rich
are.
stories that that have enough meat to them to appeal to adults, but also enough fun and good vibes and good lessons to appeal to younger moviegoers. I can't recommend that enough for the whole family.
And I'm worried about them.
I know, so am I. That's part of the reason why I shoehorned it into this section.
I know. Go see Leica movies, guys. We're really lucky to have them, and nobody seems to notice that.
I know.
And they're so good. I was lucky enough to visit the facility in Portland once, and it's truly mind-blowing. The artistry is unbelievable.
I hope they don't close before I can get there.
Right. Show your kids Paranorman. Next up,
one?
We are talking, of course, another essential of the early 2000s. Look, guys, I'm sorry. A lot of my taste was defined when I was a youth in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And Shaun of the Dead is
I feel you.
another one of those movies that ushered in this zombie craze. It's, I think one of the best self-aware films ever made. The best genre deconstructions ever made. Edgar Wright is a genius. He is on fire when he's with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. I think my favorite of theirs might be Hot Fuzz, but like Shaun of the Dead is always just nipping right at the heels. And I mean, funny, scary, sad, so emotional, so surprisingly emotional. I've never gotten over Bill Nighy in that film. Like, that scene is haunting. Romantic, it's everything. It's everything you could want. And all told through the sort of cinematic genius of Edgar Wright's freedom and imagination.
I second everything you said. say I really do love Shaun of the Dead. I don't think the craze ever really caught me as much as most people, because I think I lean towards my next pick. And when it comes to zombie comedies, Zombieland is a little more my speed. I think I've told the story before, but I'll never forget it. I mean, flat out miserable the day that screening came, because that was the day I found out that I had just graduated college and I got my first job, and it was a freelance thing that had a maximum amount of hours, and then you had to apply for a full-time position, and if you didn't get it, you had to leave the company. And I found out that day that I didn't get the full-time position. I mean, I was like crushed, because it was my first time experiencing that type of rejection. Miserable, miserable, miserable. A friend took me to the press screening of Zombieland, and I'll never forget walking out feeling like I had all the energy in the world, that I could kick some ass. Like, that just re-energized me in a way that will stick with me for the rest of my life, and I still adore that movie. It is so highly rewatchable. The lines in it, that foursome, Please nail the sequel. Please do not screw it up. I'm begging you.
I feel like if Emma Stone came back, then it's going to be good. Like her script radar has been pretty on point since what was that mistake she made with Cameron Crowe?
Oh, Aloha? Yeah.
Ever since then, she's been pretty dead on.
As she should be now.
Zombieland was one that's one where the craze never quite hit me. I enjoy it and everything. I think it's a pleasant, fun sort of popcorn movie, not to be diminutive, but like,
no, I hear you.
Just like, it entertains me is what I mean by popcorn. I love popcorn movies, but I just never got as obsessed with it as everyone else. But I am so curious what the hell they wrote that got Oscar winner Emma Stone back to Zombieland.
I'm very curious as well.
Next up for me.
We got 4 more to burn through very quickly.
We do. Return of the Living Dead, my friends. That is a party in a movie. It is one of the gooberiest, I don't know, just like funny and silly and ridiculous and punk rock and party, and yeah, I just want to hang out with that movie. Like, I feel like that movie's been places and knows more than me and will show me a good time. And it does every time I put it on. I freaking love Return of the Living Dead. It's such a shameless sort of knockoff of like everything Romero was doing, but it has so much of its own flavor that it doesn't matter. You don't even feel that element of it. I love it, and it's gross and disgusting and weird and funny.
Oh, very worthy entry to this list. I'm going to have to jump right into my next one, and I know this is the one that's going to bring up some questions. Are they really zombies? They're deadites, I know, but Evil Dead, I have to put it on the list because, I mean, technically there's a reanimation element of what happens in the movie, and that to me is one of the ones that it's just so pivotal to the growth of the genre, and I feel like what Sam Raimi does in those movies encourages other filmmakers to kind of get weird and take different risks, and the fact that that whole trilogy holds up so well and works so well together when all 3 movies feel so drastically different, I applaud them, because I'm always sitting here applauding getting like wildly creative and doing something I never seen before, and he does that in all 3 of those movies. So even though I'm isolating the very first Evil Dead right now, which is my favorite of the 3, I highly recommend exploring all 3 of them.
Yeah, as someone who is like, I don't want to fight about what makes zombies, and I'm not arguing your perspective. For me, I've always considered it actually a possession film.
Yeah, which is, I'll give that to you. It is fair. It is fair.
I think either perspective is totally valid. Imagine that. We can see things different ways.
Hey. The magic that happens on the witching hour.
Yeah. Okay, and so this was really hard for me to choose like a final one. So I'm just going to list off 4 honorable mentions that are all incredible in their own way. Cemetery Man, The Beyond, Night of the Comet is a freaking delight. If you haven't seen it, look it up. And the most recent one being the zombie Christmas musical, Anna in the Apocalypse.
I still need to see Anna in the Apocalypse.
You really do.
I know.
But almost at this point, I'm like, save it for Christmas. Like,
I'll
it's
probably
such
watch it before
a
that.
perfect seasonal film. Anyway, so the one that I did choose is one of the more recent entries, the wonderful, the spectacular, the reinvigorating for the genre, Train to Busan.
I was happy to see this on your list.
So emotional, so cathartic, really clever imagery. The scene of all of them using their ties to keep other human beings from safety says so much to me about how we just like work together as a society to destroy ourselves. I love that movie, and it's action, man. It's like an action zombie film. I just can't fuck with South Korean cinema.
I definitely love that. I was happy to see it on your list because I wanted to go with kind of, a curveball to end this out and just to give a movie that was independent fare, that was on the festival circuit, that was great, a little extra love because nobody talks about it. Have you ever seen Nina Forever?
I have.
I really adore that movie. It is about two people who have a relationship. She winds up dying and the guy falls in love with somebody else, but then the original girlfriend, Nina, comes back to life and basically torments them as their relationship progresses. And it goes in a really interesting direction that you probably will not expect. Some excellent practical effects, A-plus performances. This was one of those ones where I think it was released during a time where I'm like, oh, I'm sick of zombie movies. And then that came out and I'm like, wow, you really exceeded my expectations in a way I didn't expect.
That's how I felt about Train to Busan.
I think that was just, I just said the same thing twice. You really exceeded my expectations in a way I didn't expect.
That is what that means literally. But Train to Busan definitely was the one where I was like, I'm so sick of zombie movies. And then I was like, or am
Never brought
I?
up Girl with All the Gifts, too.
Yeah,
that's
a great one.
This list could just go on
It really,
on.
that's sort of what we were saying. Like, there's so many great zombie films. It's a really incredible genre to explore, and I highly recommend. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably already have. But dig deeper. Go weirder. There's an endless supply of phenomenal zombie movies out there.
We'll find a reason to revisit this topic very, very soon. I can assure you that.